Alright folks, how are we doing? It's Shabash. Welcome back to the channel. It's Orna again. We've got another endless guide video for tier 10, and today we're doing Realmshifter Charmer, one of the fastest builds at going through endless dungeons. We might not necessarily get as far as Heretics or Gilgamesh's, however it's definitely one of the fastest with that Warrior's Parade. So let's get right into it. I'm sure by now you should know why you'd want to do endless dungeons, but strengths and weaknesses of Realmshifter Charmer, well, as I said, it's extremely fast. Using Warrior's Pavane, we can one-shot a lot of mobs, do a shitload of damage with Warrior's Pavane. Also, talking about class passives, the one thing we're missing is Steadfast, so we do have to actively manage our status afflictions that we will get eventually. So that's one thing to bear in mind, but most of our passive abilities such as Mystic Feather, obviously that goes well with Resurgence. We actually become naturally dodgy at low life. Then Apothecarist I quite like, you know, we can use large mana potions and greater elixirs, large elixirs, this kind of thing to kind of manage our health and mana to stay within Resurgence range. We've then got Saboteur too, obviously to take down ward. A lot of endless killers will have ward, so that comes into our favor. And then, you know, with Realm's Light we can occasionally cause blind on our opponents, another string to our bow. The only big one, recharge. We don't really want to use recharge unless you're doing hard mode and you need to regain mana in some way. This card is focused on normal endless, so recharge doesn't really do anything for us. It only gets us out of Resurgence range, which we want to stay in. And as we're Charmer, we also get the lull effect, you know, a nice little addition when it does proc. We can also get this up and running with the Orichalcum Golem, which we'll talk about more in a second, but you know, it's only a tier 7 pet, very cheap on orns, very nice. You can use the Fey Yeti if you manage to get that while it was an event, but you know, nothing else is really required. Talking about a few other weaknesses, we do have limited skill slots as Realmshifter. I'm actually going to do a really concise single loadout today. You can use two loadouts, you know, one with the world loadout for skills, go in, do your buffing phase, warding phase, and then switch out your skill loadout to have a lot more skills available to you. But we've got something nice to show you that you don't need to do that. Redlining in maximum resurgence power is obviously very dangerous. We can get taken out by silly dots like rot, burn, these kind of things that are unexpected, especially if you've not died to these little dots before. They do pop up quite unexpectedly. However, there's been a recent buff to Ashen Phoenix gear from the World Raid boss, and you know, these have like a full steadfast effect. I think it just makes these dots go off quicker, so there's some pretty decent gear options as well. And then obviously the higher level we are, the more skills are available to us, and we have better skills available. Deity is a big one because we have, as we'll see in the skill loadout, we have Viper Strike 2, Gloom Strike 2. We'll talk about more in a second about why those are going to be useful, but there are other options available if you haven't unlocked Deity yet. And then of course at higher levels we're going to be naturally tankier, have more HP, have more damage, have more ward most likely as well. So it goes without saying. And moving on to gear requirements, the main focus of doing endless dungeons quickly is to gain experience and orns as fast as possible. So you're going to need a Venin. The higher quality the better, the more damage we're going to do. You do have options to put Jewels of Growth, or I'm actually going to use Assassin's Jewels in this build. Very good for going up against Berserk mobs in Endless, and you know, 5% is not a deal breaker really, to be honest with you. And then for our accessories, we're going to concentrate on Arisen Monster Tombs as well as Band of Gods. You can mix and match between them. For Realmshifter, I kind of recommend using one Arisen Monster Tomb, one Band of Gods, just to get a little bit more mana. It's a little bit more comfortable without dropping our stats massively. And then we are going to need some ward gear. The more ward gear we have, the bigger the hits we can take, and because we're going to go as fast as possible, we want to use Gate of Gunner from Beowulf, so we are going to take extremely high magic damage. So the more ward we have, the better, and the larger hits we're going to take, the further into the dungeon we can go, and the more experience we're going to get. So as you might expect by now, Old Northern Crown, really solid headpiece. Even the common quality one is very good to get started. Then we're looking at Apollyon chest and legs. Another good option is the Fey Yeti coat. We actually get health and mana. It does also stop our defense and resistance single downs. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we now have buffed Ashen Phoenix gear from the World Raid boss. Previously it was only giving you like a fake steadfast effect, and from my experience, basically it makes the status afflictions drop off much sooner than they would do normally. And as a class without steadfast, this actually becomes a super good option. Even better now is that it has increased stats, but it also has ward, most importantly. So if you get a high legendary or an ornate version of these, especially in your chest, if you don't have Arisen Certus Cuirass by the way, and in legs as well, it's probably one of our best options. So keep an eye out for Ashen Phoenix legs. In our chest slot, we're going to go with Arisen Shield or a good Fallen Shield. Those are the best options. If you don't have a decent one of them, go with your highest ward shield. Mighty Griffin Shield, also not a bad option in Endless, giving us that dragon resistance. And as we said, the higher ward we have, the further we can go into the dungeon with ease and get those increased rewards. So So let's talk about some class requirements for skills. The first one is the most important, that is Divine Bastion, either 1 or 2. If we have Divine Bastion 2 from the Titan Guard class, we're going to be able to regenerate more ward, but the 100% ward absorption is the most important here. We're not going to be able to redline effectively using only Ward of Ortonite. No, that's just not going to work. Try it if you want, but that is not going to work. Then we need to get our elemental resistances, and remember, as Realmshifter we already are immune to Dark and Holy, so we only really need to worry about the 4 basic elemental resistances that we can get from either Ward of Baylor or Ward of Anwin, and we can actually also just get them from our pet, either Orichalcum Golem or the Fey Yeti, you know, those are our options. So we tick this box very easily as Realmshifter Charmer. Then of course we need our regular stat buffing skills, mainly coming from the Druid, so you want Golem's Fortitude, Bear's Might. In my tutorial dungeon I'm going to show you my condensed skill loadout, so we're going to use a lot of tonics to make up the single ups. We also want to get Wisp's Heal and a supply of Cure-Alls. This is to cure us from those annoying status effects like Rot and Burn that really are not going to make our day end very well. Once we reach level 230 we're going to get Gate of Gunner. That's going to give us a large attack boost. Now I know some people like to hold off from using the gates, the offensive gates at least, for a certain length of time in the dungeon. That provides a much safer endless progression experience. Obviously it's going to be a bit slower, but I personally like a lot of damage as fast as possible, and with Realmshifter Charm I think the main goal is to get to a certain level as fast as possible. So I'm going to go with Gate of Gunner. You can of course play about with it and use Gate of Gunner, you know, once you reach a certain point, maybe level 140, 150, whatever you want to get to. Then we want at least one status affliction skill like Stun Dart or Sleep Dart. If you have unlocked Freeze from buying a Leviathan class or the tier 4 Real Money class, use that as well, because a lot of these mobs that can get berserk, you know, like Fallen Arcanics and stuff, we can actually sleep them or stun them, and that's a very, very good thing to do in endless dungeons. Finally, we need some Dark and Dragon skills, and this will become clearer as we load up the tutorial dungeon. Finally, we want some Dark and Dragon elemental skills to kill certain monsters in the endless dungeon. It will hopefully become clearer as we go through the tutorial dungeon. Best option is going to be Viper Strike 2 and Gloom Strike 2 from the Deity class. If you haven't unlocked Deity yet, we can get Blight Strike 3 from the Freyr class, and we can also get Dark Strike 3 from Magistrate, which you've probably already unlocked if you are Realmshifter anyway. So we'll talk more about the skill loadout once we get into the dungeon, but those are the main classes we need as Realmshifter Charmer. Finally, let's touch on pets. I've already mentioned the main one we're going to use. If you missed out on the Fey Yeti, as it is an event pet, we can go with Orichalcum Golem, which is available all year round. It's a really common pet to get, only tier 7, so it's really cheap as well. And basically with the Orichalcum Golem we get near infinite ward turns, so we don't need to buff up to like 300 ward turns as we do with other pets, but we also have good ward regeneration. And that's going to be a big thing as Realmshifter. We don't have natural ward regeneration like Gilgamesh or Cataphract, so regular ward topping up is really useful. We get a small protect chance, and we also get some elemental resistances as well. The Fey Yeti has a little bit less ward regeneration, but it does have increased damage mitigation in the form of the Storm and Fire facades, which effectively blocks a lot of incoming damage. So these are both really good options. If you have the option to use both, play about, see which one you like the best. If you can only have the Orichalcum Golem, don't worry, because we're going to run this tutorial dungeon with the Ori Golem and it is super good. So with the introduction out of the way, let's dive in, and hopefully we're going to get further than floor 87 this time, depending on what we come across. So we're going to jump in right now, light a fire under this. Okay, so let's check out my gear that we're going to do in this dungeon. Yes, we have the Old Northern Crown. I've got Apollyon Jewels in there, Jewels of the End. Then we've got a Demon Forge Realm Garb. This is coming from Apollyon Raid. I do have access to an Arisen Surge's Cuirass, but I'm going to use this Realm Garb to show you how we get it on without, you know, maximum ward available to you. Also got the Apollyon Boots. Then we've got Arisen Shield as well, so our maximum ward shield also stops us getting cursed. In our accessories we've got one Arisen Monster Tomb and one Band of Gods, and then our weapon is going to start off as the Venom. Now you can see I've got Assassin Jewels in mine. You of course have the option to put Jewels of Growth in there. 5% extra experience isn't nothing. If the Assassin Jewels allow you to take down a Berserk King Gradlin, you know, in floor 150, and somehow you get 500 million XP, how many Jewels of Growth is going to get you to that point as well? So, you know, personal preference. You might notice here that we have an organic Venom. I've currently got my faction element on it. And checking out our skills, we're going to talk about exactly how we're going to go through this dungeon. And it might be expected for some of you, it might not be. Top floor here we have Golem's Fortitude, Mimic's Mischief, and Gate of Gunner. So that's giving us our double attack ups, double defense and resistance, and of course the offensive Gate of Gunner there. Then we have Lightning Affinity. Now, the more endless runs you do, the more you're going to realize that there's certain mobs which you constantly come across which require a little bit of extra effort to defeat. And one of the big ones is of course Arisen Hydra, because it's just so fast, so much health, a lot of ward as well. If you get a berserk one, then we're going to come into a bit more problems. But effectively, that Arisen Hydra is weak to lightning damage, and across the 3 other basic elements, there's not actually any mobs which are weak to those elements that pose any kind of threat. You know, like Earth has the Ancient Djinn, which is a one-shot regardless of what element you use. So we're going to use Lightning Affinity, even though we're not going to get the 25% faction bonus. We're going to see how that goes in this run. Again, every run is different. We might not see any Arisen Hydras whatsoever. It's definitely a skill to play about with and see how it goes for you. Next we have Wisp's Heal, which is there to get rid of certain basic status afflictions, mainly the dots like Rot, Burn, those kind of things. We get rid of that with this. And we then have Divine Bastion 2 for, of course, 100% ward absorption, as well as a little bit of regeneration if we need it. We have Ward of Balor 2 to get our elemental resistances, as well as it's going to double up in this concise skill loadout as our ward turn builder. We then take Stun Dart, you could take Sleep Dart or Freeze, or you know, if we have more skill slots available, you can of course use multiple versions. We have Double Edge, that is going to allow us to get our health down into Resurgence. And then at the bottom we have our 3 main damaging skills. We've got Gloom Strike 2, this is there specifically for King Gradlin, a notorious Endless Ender, as you may have realized if you watched the Heretic video. We then have Viper Strike 2, and this is there specifically for Mighty Mimics, which is immune to all the basic resistances. It's also going to be probably the skill we use the most for the lightning immune enemies. That's only the Fallen Thor and the Fallen Tyrannus mob as well. And then finally we have Warrior's Pavane. This is going to be our main damage dealing skill. Okay, so this is the condensed version of the skill loadout. Obviously, if you have the time to use another skill loadout, you can actually go in either with another class, or you know, you can swap in a gauntlet loadout specifically for all the buffing skills. You can add in Wyvern Speed 2, Barrier 2, and then that opens up these buffing slots here for extra utility like Freeze. You can then use a hard-hitting faction elemental skill, or you can even put in your faction affinity as well. So we're going to roll with this, see how we get on as a single loadout, and we are going to go put on our boosters. Make sure we do that. Okay, so we'll check our experience at the end of the run, see how much we get. We're not going to run shrines, so remember, if you're going to run shrines, you can double the average that we find here. We've got 1300 mana, 41,000 ward, 3,300 attack. That's going to be a kind of benchmark to see how we get on with using multi-hit skill that is Warrior's Pavane. So let's get into it and see how we get on. The first target is obviously going to be floor 87, beat our Heretic Endless Mode run that we did with the tutorial, which wasn't very good. So once we're in here, depending on what mob we get first up, we're going to check and see if we can go into Divine Bastion straight off the bat. I might actually just use some Golem's Fortitude, get our stats up a little bit, and then we can use Divine Bastion 2. It's a little bit risky, this one, going with only Divine Bastion 2. If you're using a separate skill loadout for the buffing phase, you can use Ward of Orna, use that first up, then do your buffs, go into Divine Bastion. That's going to be the safest option, obviously. That's going to be the safest option, obviously, but we are going with a condensed as fast as possible build here. So we get our main buff skills up, then we're going to run into our tonics. We want to get dexterity up. You never know how it's going to help us. We are going to be making use of Mystic Feather, but dexterity and Mystic Feather act differently, separately from each other. And then yes, defense tonics and magic resist tonic. Of course, don't use a berserk mushroom. We don't want any attack dots on us. That's why we're not taking Chimera on this run. If you want to get into some kind of speedrunning shenanigans, you can go with Chimera, but that's not what we're looking for this run. We want to get as far as possible. So speaking of target floors then, now that we've got our buffs up, we're just going to build up some more turns and get our elemental resistances. We're then going to use Ambrosia to clear any resistance and defense downs that we managed to get from Mimic's Mischief. So Realm Charmer, hopefully, as we'll see, in this run is super fast, and it's going to allow us to go really far. Not really far, and it's going to allow us to reach certain thresholds in floors really quickly, even with the Venom, even with Arisen Monster Tomes. So the target on average is going to be around floor 125, 130 if you're just starting out, also depending on your level. As you get experience, you can push your average floor up to maybe 150. If you can reach floor 150 regularly with a Venom and Arisen Monster Tombs and or a Band of Gods, then you're actually doing really well. And it's at that point in searching runs that we might consider switching out our Venom. Hopefully we can keep Arisen Monster Tombs or Band of Gods, but you know, as Charmer we have the option of using instruments to get the 5% offensive bonus, or we can use Realmshifter weapons. We will find out how much we get in this run. Okay, we're going to build 150 war turns just to be safe here. Not certain exactly how many turns we're going to need. Orichalcum Golems, sometimes you can get a little bit lazy, but in general you can go to around 100 war turns just to be quick. And as with Realmshifter Charmer, quickness is the name of the game here. So I'll tell you what, 144 war turns is enough. And from this point we're going to get our final buff, which is Lightning Affinity. Use one final Ambrosia. Clear that double defense down, that's going to be causing a lot of issues later on. And from this point, Warriors Purveying all the way. Actually, first we need to use Double Edge. Forgot about that. We need to actually use Resurgence in this run, otherwise we're not going to get very far. So of course, Double Edge, if you haven't used any kind of Resurgence or redlining skills or passives in the past, basically you can use Double Edge either 9 or 10 times to get our health down into maximum Resurgent power. To play it safe, we're going to leave our health around 500 or between 500 and 1000 HP. If you're going for maximum speed, you can kill mobs with Double Edge. That will leave you at 1 health. That's obviously really risky and not very necessary, especially when we're just starting our run. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to use a Greater Elixir. I should have used a large elixir, I forgot about Apothecarist, but my plan here was to get to around 1000 HP, which I made. I meant 500 HP. Now the plan here was to get to around 500 HP, so we're just going to use a large elixir and then use Double Edge again. Okay, and now we're in the range where we want to use Warriors Purveying, Immortal Lord, getting a taste of his own medicine there. And yeah, from this point, Warriors Purveying and kill everything. Go as fast as possible. So for a lot of things, here's our first lightning immune mob, and it's the Mighty Mimic. Now we have Viper Strike 2. This is mainly there for the berserk mobs. So you often come across berserk mobs that are going to have very high stats indeed. If you would use a dragon multi-hitting skill, that would be Wyvern Strikes, which has more potential damage, but of course it doesn't have that initial M1 penetration. So that's why I like the Viper Strike 2s. Here's our second lightning immune mob straight off the bat as well, so we have to use Viper Strike 2 again. Now the Viper Strikes has the little bit of healing as well, so just watch out for that. Our health has crept up above 1500 there, so we can use Double Edge again, make sure we get that down as low as possible. And I'm going to demonstrate one of the reasons why you want to take Stun Dart. There's a couple of mobs in here. Fallen Gaia and Fallen Leviathan are some of those ones that come to mind. They have Mystic Feather. I could have shown you in the codex, but you get them below half health and they become nightmares to hit. If they're berserk, it's even worse, so you know, watch out for that. But we're just going to settle into this run, use Warriors Purveying. We had actually those two immune mobs straight off the bat there, which was quite interesting. But you can see Warriors Purveying, we're doing roughly 100k damage here, but it's very fast. We have, as Charmer, it's only 60 mana, and I'm not actually going to use greater mana potions because I've got more than 1000 mana, but if you've got less than 1000 mana, obviously use greater mana potions. Again, it's probably a good idea to give yourself a little bit of leeway on the mana side, keep yourself above 300 mana. That would allow you on any kind of monster on the next turn, at least allow you to get a few hits off. Like the last thing you want to do is to go into a berserk mob and you have to use a mana potion turn 1. Okay, we were poisoned there. I completely didn't notice. You gotta watch for those things. You gotta watch for the dots. Poison. If you don't kill anything turn 1, be careful because there's a very good chance they might apply a dot on you. I completely didn't notice. I was drinking tea. We're just going to demonstrate maximum resurgence power here at 1 HP. Hopefully we can get fairly far. So here we go. There was that immunity there. Pick the mobs to use potions on. Tier 9 mobs are the best because they're not going to damage us significantly. Okay, and here we go, 1 Arisen Hydra. This is the reason why we've got lightning affinity on our weapon. We use Warrior's Pavane and we do blue damage on this guy. And there's Realm's Light kicking in as well, blind. Really useful. Unexpected, but very useful. Status Affliction to put on mobs. Okay, so this is one of the things to watch out for. Odin is a bit of annoying in Endless. We get Miasma 2 and we've got Toxic. Now, Toxic can actually stop you from using any skills, so there's only really one option here, and that is to use a Panacea. And then we're going to want to use Double Edge and get back into Resurgence range as quick as possible. Thankfully this is not Berserk. Okay, the Assassin's Jewels have kicked in there, so I'm just going to finish it off with Warrior's Pavane. That was a solid hit, about 100k there. And finish off using Double Edge. So if you're not in Stormforce and you're using this, okay, here we go. Berserk, Mammon Acolyte. I think Warrior's Pavane should still be fine here. Whoa, got the stun on him though. Could have been dangerous. We were running Gunner here, so that thing could probably have caused some serious damage to us, but yeah, we got out of there. Mammon Acolytes, again, very good options for using status immunity, for using status afflictions on, sorry, Stun Dart, Sleep Dart, Freeze. Very good candidates. Lol. So obviously if we are not Stormforce faction like myself, we're going to miss out on the 25% faction bonus. Now if you had extra skill slots available to you, you may want to have, you know, switched between taking out the affinity or putting on your faction affinity depending on what element you have on your Venom during the course of the dungeon. But hopefully you can see, going through this run with lightning affinity without that faction bonus for my character, we can see how far we managed to get without that extra damage bonus. So we'll check in at 100 how many war turns we have left. I think we started with 144. We'll see how Ori Golem. King Gratlin's back. Berserk style. So this is the point where we want to use Gloomstrike 2, but you can see Gloomstrike 2 costs 180 mana. and we're currently rocking what, 360 mana, so we've got 2 hits on this guy. In fact, there's no chance there's going to be enough, but let's just go with it, see how much damage we do. 37k. Okay, I'm actually going to use my mana potion right now, and we get stunned, which is not very helpful at all. So we get taken out by 2 Berserk King Gradlins in 2 days. 486. We didn't even make it past 487. Fuck, you know. Alright, leave a comment down below what I should have done differently in that situation. Okay, so we did manage to get about 900 million XP there before our run was completely destroyed by the same King Gradlin as yesterday. Don't really know what to say. Of course, I wish I could have got to floor 150 for this tutorial, but you know, I think that means that Odie wants me to make more endless videos in the future and make a proper showcase as to what Realmshifter and indeed Heretic can actually do in dungeons. So let me know if you want to see. I can do endless videos with XP gear as well. Hopefully I've given you a blueprint that you can go and take away and modify to your particular build for Realmshifter Charmer. I can assure you it is actually a little bit better than what I managed to showcase in that dungeon just now. Hopefully you got an idea of the power of Warriors Pavane. We can really actually cut through the first 100 floors extremely quickly. I got to a point on my push to level 250 that I was getting up to floor 120, 130 on average in roughly 15 minutes, and that was with 2 legendary Arisen Monster Tombs and a Venom. You know, retrospectively I should have swapped in a better weapon to try and take down that King Gradlin, but realistically I'm not sure we had the ward or indeed the stats to take down that Berserk. That's really unfortunate. Okay folks, so after that run I actually ended up recording another endless run with the exact same build, same skills, same gear, and we managed to get to floor 157. So I'm going to upload that as like an appendix tutorial dungeon part 2 if you like to this video. Link in the description to that below, or of course you can check it out anytime. Please let me know in the comments below your best floor as Realmshifter, whether it's Charmer or a different spec. Let me know if you've got any secret tips that you want to share with the rest of the Orna community. They might need some extra tips after this video, but if you'd like to see some more endless content, please feel free to hop into the stream. I'll be streaming live on Twitch at 8 PM GMT. That will be on Monday and Thursdays. Hopefully if we have time we'll add in another day as well, but Mondays and Thursdays 8 PM GMT. Feel free to pop in, have a word, have a chat. If you've got any questions regarding the game, please feel free. We'll help you out with that as best as I can. Otherwise I'm going to have to sit down and rethink my endless strategy so I can learn to avoid some Berserk King Gradlins before reaching level 490 in endless dungeons. But I hope you got something useful out of this video. Please, again, if you've got any further questions, feel free to drop a comment and I'll do my best to answer them as soon as I can. If you did enjoy the video, please like, and if you haven't done so already, please also subscribe for more Orna content coming soon. We're keeping this Orna content train rolling on. I'm Shabash, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao. Oh, I was burning, didn't realize. Fuck's sake.